Hi, I'm back with the 25 books of 2025, according to September 2024. But I'm going to be publishing this around about Holocaust Memorial Day in January. So it's The Twins of Auschwitz, the inspiring true story of a young girl surviving Mengele's hell, by Eva Mozes Kor, of Lisa Rojany Buccieri. Okay. When Eva Mozes Kor and her family arrived at Auschwitz, they were immediately separated. Her parents and sister were taken to the gas chambers, while Eva and her twin Miriam were herded into the care of Dr. Josef Mengele, later to be known as the Angel of Death. They were 10 years old. At Auschwitz, twins were granted the privileges of keeping their own clothes and hair, but they were also subjected to Mengele's sadistic and dangerous medical experiments. For daily to fight for survival, many died as a result of the tests, often the diseases and hunger rife in the camp. Right, and this is Miriam's story, Miriam and Eva's story, written by Eva. And as it starts off, it does not hold back. One thing I will give Eva Mozes Kor is she has this ability as an author. Now, I've been to Auschwitz. I've had the privilege and the pain of actually walking through Auschwitz, and this does not hold back. The way she writes, you're immediately thrust into this world. The doors of the train car were thrown all the way open for the first time in many days. The lights of the day shining upon us like a blessing. Dozens of Jewish people had been crammed into the tiny cattle cars as it rattled through the countryside, taking us further and further away from our home in Romania. Desperate people pushed their way out. I held tightly to my twin's hand as we were shoved onto the platform, not sure whether to be glad of our release or afraid of what was coming. What was coming. So you can imagine these two 10-year-old girls are dressed identical in burgundy dresses, and they are they are very, very striking, identical. But even after all these days, they were taken from the home in Romania to a ghetto, and then taken to, they actually were caught, they were captured by the Hitler Youth leaving Romania, and then taken to a ghetto, and then taken to Auschwitz. Now, the fact is, okay, they were wearing identical burgundy dresses, and they're identical twins. They were catching, and a guard came across them and said this to their mother. Are they twins? He asked Mama. She hesitated. Is that good? Yes, said the guard. They are twins, replied Mama. Without a word, he grabbed Miriam and me and tore us away from Mama. No, no. Miriam, I screamed. Okay. But all we knew is that we were abruptly alone. We were 10 years old. And we never saw Mama, Papa, Edith, or Elise again. That's their two older siblings. Yeah. Suddenly, okay, their family of 6 became a family of 2. Yeah. And one thing I absolutely love is, not love in that sense, okay, but the way he describes her family, her community, is just so real and vivid. Me and I are identical girls, the youngest of 4 sisters. Then my older sisters grudgingly tell the story of our births. You would have known immediately that we two would have died as a family. What if sweeter or cuter than identical twin girls? Right. And they're born in a village of Ports in Transylvania, Romania, which is near the border of Hungary. Right, never actually been, always wanted to. So, interesting too is they're making it clear the dynamic as well of the twins. Now, out of the 2 of them, Miriam is actually the eldest twin, Eva's the youngest. However, it's interesting how the dynamic is different because of this. Now, in the families, okay, the dynamic in what you're born in, it depends a lot, okay. There's the responsible eldest, the middle child, the boy, okay, or the only boy, and myself, I'm the youngest, I'm the baby of the family, okay. So there's the youngest of the twins and his last child. He often looked at me and said, you should have been a boy. I think he meant to say that I was his last chance of getting a boy. My personality just cemented it. I was strong and brave and more outspoken, so I can imagine a son of his might have been. That's his personality. The parents were kind, the parents were loving, okay. And one thing is this, I want to make clear, okay. Now, in this, it's when Eva's talking about her family, about the threat of the Nazis, okay, the kind of the encroaching evil that's as the Nazis invade and getting further in. And it's interesting here, okay, is when look about Uncle Aaron, okay, who decided to go to Palestine to see if he could make a living there. Palestine at the time was an area of land in the Middle East where the Jewish people lived before their exile during the times of the Roman Empire, especially during periods of persecution. It is always thought as a homeland by many Jews. A part of Palestine had been set aside for Jewish immigration early 20th century and eventually become the independent state of Israel in 1948. Now, just for clarification's sake, so I now doing this review in September 2024, the Israeli-Palestinian war is still going on, and I'm definitely not an expert in any of this, but for clarity's sake, I'm going to be referring to the future location is Israel and not Palestine, just to avoid confusion. Okay, in this Eva talks about Palestine as the promised land. However, that state will soon become the nation of Israel. So I'm going to keep calling it Israel, and yeah, just keep it just to avoid clarification. And my feelings on the matter is this: can I just say I'm against war? I absolutely hate any forms of anti-Semitism in any shape, way, forms, or racism, or anything like that. And so, only thing I'll say about this is, after so many decades of fighting and eternal fighting, I truly hope eventually both countries, and I recognise both as countries, okay, will sit down and have a conversation and just end this war. Eventually, it's going to get to the point where it will have to happen. It's been going on for decades, okay, and hopefully one day it will stop. Now, Eva passed away several years ago, so clearly she had no idea what was coming next, as many of us didn't. So, but I just want to just clarify that, right? So when they talk, okay, of the family going to Israel um to live for safety, it's we are safest, said my mother. She really believed that the rumours of Jews being persecuted by the Germans and a new head of state, Adolf Hitler, were just that, rumours. Should I need to flee to Israel or America, pays the safety for Jewish people like us, so we stayed in ports. It's so easy in a 21st century kind of mentality to say, why don't people flee earlier, leave earlier? Because they heard all these rumours. They were rumours, okay? So obviously they had no idea, okay, of the encroaching jackboots coming away, wearing their very, very stylish, let's admit it here, Hugo Boss outfits. Of course not. They had absolutely no idea. And the thing is that the threat of Nazism creeps close and closer and closer to this family. And it's absolutely heartbreaking how it's done. I mean, it's just the little things and builds and builds and builds, so it's almost inevitable. Right, and just this bit here, okay, is when they talk about these two girls, because in their community, they are the only Jewish family, okay? They have like Jewish relations, but like miles away. But in their village, they are the only Jewish family. And kids began to spit at us and beat us up at every opportunity. One day, our math book contained this problem. If you had 5 Jews and you killed 3 Jews, how many Jews would be left? How heartbreaking it must be for a Jewish child or any child to read that, okay? Right. If you, that's hard. No, that's horrific. That's horrific. But that kind of shows, okay, what is happening in Romania at this time, okay? The encroaching Nazism, sorry. And when they are captured, okay, and when they are taken to the ghetto and then thrown to Auschwitz, their father makes this promise to them, okay? So he makes a promise to them that if they must survive, okay, they have to do this. They got to Eva Miriam have to swear this, right? Right. Promise me then, if any of you survive this terrible, you will go to Israel where your Uncle Aaron lives and where Jews can live in peace. I've spoken to us girls like this before, with respect, as though we were adults. Miriam and I and our older sisters solemnly agreed. But then, straight after, they are separated from their mother, never see their families again, and they are in Auschwitz being selected as to be Mengele twins. And the way it all happens. Now, one thing I absolutely give Eva is that, well, put it this way, okay, is she is so determined to fight back, even from the age of 10, is that when they're inking on, when they put the devil's arithmetic on her arm, her tattoo, she struggles. For the rest of her life, okay, just the ink is smudged. The ink is smudged on the tattoo on her arm. But just from that very at 10 years old, okay, she was fighting back. She was asserting her independence. She was sitting there, but she will not be conquered. She will not be beaten. She is an amazing woman. There you go. Right. And then when she's talking about the fact they're identical twins, it's a girl called a mother and a twin to stand with our group. I recognise her. It was Miss Kazangari, wife of the storekeeper in a town near our village. Her twin daughters were 8 years old. When we shopped at the store, she and her mama got to talk about the problems of raising twins. She and a girl stayed in our group. Why did the guards let their mother come with them and not ours? Every time they pondered the question much before things started happening again. I would love to know the story behind those twins. Absolutely, okay. Those twins also survived Auschwitz, and I would love to know the story if it's out there. So, and when they were tattooed, but when they head was short haircuts, but it wasn't shaved, they were told, okay, that some were allowed to keep their hair, having it was a special privilege, but sadly, because of headlights, which was rampant in the camp, all the fleas and in the end, it was cut short, and they begin their lives in bunkers and barracks as Mengele's twins in the barracks. And the thing is, this kid, they say they were given special treatment, but they still suffered so greatly. They had never had enough to eat. They, had rats running all over their bodies. And the most tragic thing is this, okay, if one twin died, what they also did was inject the other twin with a shot chloroform to the heart and do autopsies together. Twins had to fight to stay alive. Okay? And the next morning, okay, this kind of shows, okay, what Auschwitz has done to these children. So I've been there for longer than Eva and Miriam. Miriam and I did not know the routine yet. Holding hands, we watched the older girls help the younger ones prepare the roll call. And so we lined up rolls of fire to be counted. Roll call took half an hour to an hour. Looking back, I do not remember a single child sitting down or crying. They were 2-year-olds. I think we instinctively knew our lives depended on cooperation. And then when he actually, Josef Mengele, right, here we are. And the thing is, Josef Mengele is the angel of death. He was an awful, awful person. His medical science, okay, if you even call that, wasn't even be considered science. Okay, he was just a sadist who just loved to torture people. That's it. He's okay doing it in the name of science. He's doing it in the name of torture. That's why he did it, because he could. Right, here you go. After Josef Mengele entered the barracks, he was dressed elegantly in SS uniform, torn shiny black riding boots. He wore white gloves and carried a baton. My first thought was how handsome he was, like a movie star. He strode for the barracks, counting twins at every bump, with an entourage of 8 people accompanying him. Later found out that the group included Dr. Curvin, a girl who was the interpreter, several SS guards and assistants. Mengele was never escorted up by fewer than 8 in his entourage at his barracks checks. He comes into the barracks with his entourage, basically to make Dr. Josef Mengele, the angel of death, look better. Yes. Mengele look better. And it's interesting too, even from this very, very early stage, the amount of tests they do, x-rays, photographs, examinations, okay, the eye colour, the eye colours, the shape of the nose, the mouth, just these strange tests, just to kind of see how identical these twins are, and they are obviously identical. And if I did something, Miriam did the same. Every time I follow you, Miriam whispered, they write something down. I want to see which of us is the leader. Of course it was me. This is how it always been. Observing us the previous day in the prison centre when I visited tattooing, I already knew I was a troublemaker. Right. So, yep. And in that, they cast into this world where the thing is, they don't actually see virtually anyone from the other camp. They're kept in a separate place. In a way, their experience in Auschwitz was an isolated one, but they saw things going past, okay? They saw cars going by full of dead people. They understood quite early that what the crematorium was. I've actually been to the children's barracks in Auschwitz-Birkenau, and the actual children's barracks is actually right next to one of the gas chambers, which has now been demolished, okay? It was blown up by the Nazis trying to hide the evidence, but one gas chamber that actually didn't, and you can see for yourself, and it's horrific and heartbreaking. Those who do go, please remember, it's a place of respect, and it's a memorial. So there you go. Dr. Mengele set up a routine for us to follow. 3 days a week we were forced to march to the labs in Auschwitz for intensive studies that left us exhausted. The other day we were in the blood labs in Birkenau. One day melded into the next. Every morning after roll call, Mengele came to our barracks for inspection. Sometimes he smiled at us. Mein Kindler, my children. So my children liked him and called him Uncle Mengele. Not I was terrified of him. Even though I knew he did not care for us like a real doctor. But you can clearly see, okay, some of the children are calling him Dr. Mengele, basically starting to like him or claiming to like him, because if I'm nice to Dr. Mengele, if I'm sweet to Dr. Mengele, if Dr. Mengele likes me, maybe he won't kill me. Maybe he won't kill me. Right. And when they talk about the plan is for the twins, because Mengele had an obsession, okay, with twins, okay, obsession with twinning. He had an obsession, okay, is could he unlock the secret, okay, of basically create multiples of the master race, okay? Like imagine, okay, what is just before this was used for IVF, like Dr. Mengele, okay, one little shot of this injection, okay, instead of having one little Aryan baby, okay, Fräulein, you will have 4 little Aryan babies, Fräulein, right? This was actually so important to the Nazis. They even had programs, women who gave birth to multiple children, Okay, they were actually given rewards. They were rewarded for it. Okay, multiple births. Okay, to multiple Aryan children. Ugh. Yes. Right. Here you go. So when Eva becomes sick, it becomes very critical and crucial. And um, this bit here, okay, is the morning after I arrived, I was becoming ill. Mengele and a team of 4 doctors came to see me. I discussed my case as though I was in a regular hospital. Although they spoke in German, I understood a lot of them, what they were saying. So Mengele laughed, as said about me with a smirk. Too bad she's so young and has 2 weeks to live. How could he know that? But then I just so that Mengele knew what disease had infected me with and how it would progress. And maybe in Berberian spotted fever. In all those years, I've never found out. So while she's there, she's got to fake that she's getting better. She pushes the thermometer, like shakes it, and puts it further under her arm so it's sticking out at the end to basically pretend her temperature is down. And she's there for several weeks. And when she gets out, it's absolutely heartbreaking that what has happened in the meantime is that whilst Eva was fighting for her life in the infirmary after being infected, they decided in the meantime, because as the mentality was, Eva's going to, be dead in 2 weeks, as we might as well just experiment on Miriam. So Miriam was also tested separately. I didn't want to talk about it, but what the experiments on her stunted her growth internally. For the rest of her life, she had the kidneys of a 10-year-old. And even though years to come, Eva would actually donate to a kidney, she still struggled with her health until she left this world until the next. That is it, right? So, just that. And the thing is this, is that Eva writes with this detachment. Now, she has a gift as a writer to put you in the location, but also take you out of it. She's like there, but at a distance. It's a very rare quality in an author, right? And at various points when she's saying that when she's in the shower, she's looking at the boys who are also showering and realizes how skinny they are. But she won't recognize how skinny herself and Miriam are, because that's like admitting defeat. In her head, she must remain that healthy girl, that healthy, vibrant 10-year-old, right? And the thing is that eventually, now they are in Auschwitz for a year, and then it's liberated. Okay, the war is over. The Nazis have fallen, and they're on the run. And now it's like suddenly the Germans. Sorry, not the Germans. I'm not going to blame the Germans for this. Okay, I'm going to blame the Nazis for this. There is like, well, what are we going to do? Okay, about the situation in the camps. So they decide to send everyone on a death march. Basically, march the individuals of the camps on a march until they drop down dead. But the thing is this, by a stroke of luck, Miriam and Eva were not there, okay? Miss Caligari and her daughters remained, and also the Nazis were in such a hurry to get everyone out that they didn't bother checking each barracks. So, exactly. So suddenly, they're free. There is no Nazis until Nazis come back and actually start shooting at them, okay? But they managed to escape, and then the Red Army, the Soviets arrive, and the liberation happens. And one thing I love is it always kind of makes it clear, okay, after like this kind of period in history, okay, the gap between the Nazis fleeing and the Soviets arriving, what actually happened to the inhabitants of the camps who were still there? Now, some, okay, were just left there to die, and some sadly left as well for the next, and some mercifully actually recovered and progressed on with their lives. It's the girls and I broke into Nazi storage places and buildings where the SS lived. Twice we went into Nazi headquarters and a nice house with nice furniture. Before that, I had not known such a place existed. Luxurious living right in the middle of a Nazi death camp. We saw food in the table that looked awfully good. It looked freshly prepared and delectable. In fact, it looked like too good. Was something wrong with it? Out of hunger, I snatched it back, but just before eating it, I stopped and put it back. Later, I talked to people in the camp who said that the Nazis purposely left poison food. Prisoners like me would eat it and die. Right. So, yeah, they're breaking into these houses, okay, and seeing whilst them and their citizens, okay, their nation was dying in the camp, the Nazis living luxurious lives, and they did. I've actually seen some of these homes myself in pictures. It's incredible that literally in the midst of such pain and depravity, where the ash fell like snow from, the gas chambers, you have the Nazis sitting there living fat lives, okay, eating the best food, drinking the best, okay, and just ignoring what was out there. And what is interesting is this, that on the morning of January 27th, that's Holocaust Memorial Day, the noise stopped. For the first time in weeks, we were in complete silence. It was snowing heavily, and suddenly, um, so on this day, some day later, maybe 3 or 4 p.m., all around front of the barracks, started yelling out, "We are free, we are free, we are free." And that's it, the war is over, they are free. But the thing is this, that is only 4 days before their birthday. Now, their 10th birthday they mentioned, their 11th birthday, they do not, because they don't have their 11th birthday. They don't even consider, even if I consider in this book that he's only days away from my 11th birthday, it's only like a passing mention further along, because that has no meaning now. That has absolutely no meaning right now in that to her. So whilst the Soviets are there and they're talking about their futures, well, obviously, okay, these are 11-year-old girls. They are 11-year-old girls, we're approaching, just days away from, and now, okay, they're talking about their future, okay, and what they want. And they are absolutely static because they are lost in that moment. They've yet to really hit them what they've lost. They know what they've lost, but suddenly, okay, for the first time, after all this time in Auschwitz, they're tasting freedom and they're ecstatic. But also, okay, they are not facing up to reality and what it all means. They are children, after all, who have lost their family in the death camp. We are free. No more hell doctor, no more experiments, no more injections, no more hangings, no more. We're having a contest everything we would not miss now that we were free. We could do what we want, Miriam. We could do what we want. Home, I stated, I want to go home. Miriam says to my face, okay, we are free, let's go home. So the plan was for them to go home, but of course reality is going to ensure they can't just walk out, okay, of Poland and walk back to their little hometown of Romania, Transylvania, and say, oh, you know, we're home now, that's it. That doesn't happen. And I love the realism of this, okay. After this, there was a question, okay, now these places, people liberated, now what? How do we get them home? Is there homes? Will our homes taken over? These people relinquish their homes? Most likely not. So many people were displaced. It was unbelievable. We arrived, and a few weeks after we left, so a few weeks later we finally left Auschwitz. We were taken into a house and wagon to an orphanage in the monastery in Poland. Then we found that the arrangements had been made by the Soviets, who were working with the Red Cross and Jewish refugee organisations. When we arrived at the monastery, we were taken to our new living quarters. I was shocked. Mia and I were given our own nice rooms. There were 2 beds with clean white sheets. Sheets. I've not seen a white sheet in almost a year. It felt strange and out of place. My brother would give us a bath, so we were filthy covered with lice. There was no way to sleep on that clean white bed. That night I ripped them off the bed and went to sleep on the bare mattress, and not to make everything dirty, it seemed wrong. The nuns had put beautiful toys in our room, but the toys made me angry. Toys were for children. I was 11 years old, but no longer knew how to play. What I needed was warmth and loving care. Auschwitz, I struggled to keep myself and Miriam alive. They wanted to go home. That's all she wanted, was to go home. And the sad fact is, she was no longer a child. She was a child, most definitely, but her childhood was gone. The time in the camp had totally ruined her childhood. And when it came to them actually getting home, they actually tracked down Mrs. Senegari, remember her? Also Auschwitz, okay, with her own twin daughters, right, who agreed to sign them out to the orphanage to bring them back home. That was the plan, to take them back to Romania, right? So they were, and I respect the case, they were tenacious enough to ask if she would pretend to be their aunt just to get them out of Auschwitz. That's impressive. But the reality is that these girls were both clinging on to hope that they would get home and walk through the door and be like it was before, and their parents and their sisters were there, and that was it. And they could put Auschwitz behind them. As soon as they get back to their hometown, they walk into that house and reality hits, and it hits so hard. Right. As he approached our house, my heart beat so hard I could feel it thumping. I couldn't wait to reach it. Finally would be home. My memories of the house full of nice things and good times, warm beds and clothes that fit. My family. But none of it was left. Nothing but the untilled land and the bare walls of an empty house. Everything neglected, abandoned. I rose immediately. Mum and Papa had not returned. They never would have left the weeds grow so high. It was at that moment I knew Miriam and I were the last that were left of the Moses family. Right. Everyone who hadn't escaped to Palestine to Israel was gone. There was nobody else. There was nobody else. So the twins' cousin shows up and takes them to the aunt, okay, in a place called Cluj, which is in Romania. Now, interesting at this point too is now Romania has been under the control of the Nazis to under control of the Soviets. Right. So now it's the USSR, it's the Iron Curtain, and these girls growing into their womanhood, and they're in a location where there's the red police everywhere, okay, the Communist Party and the secret police, sorry, okay, and it's a very, very confusing time for them, a very, very confusing time. And it's interesting too, okay, like this bit here, right, before the war, me and I had always enjoyed to visit Aunt Irene's house and a visit to see us. She and her husband travelled extensively, and she would tell us stories of the vacations in the French Riviera and Monte Carlo. We love to hear about her. We love to hear about and see her jewelry and furs. Her son was her favourite cousin, but under the Communist Party, it's a difficult time. Also, under the Communist Party, it's the fact that these two women are now suffering from severe PTSD. They're growing up, they're becoming, young women, or teenagers. However, they are both suffering from severe PTSD, and they feel just so mushy trapped. And there's bits of this. See, so many people thought that maybe because they were so young when they were in Auschwitz, and so young when they were liberated Auschwitz, they could put Auschwitz behind them. They could oh well, you were young, but you're growing up now, forget about it, essentially, okay? Your parents are gone, move on with your life. But no, they couldn't. They absolutely couldn't. And the thing is me and I felt out of place. We were sloppy and messy. We were 11 years old, kids who returned from the battles of Auschwitz. We did not belong in Auschwitz, but we did not belong in this fancy apartment in Cluj either. Every night, I had nightmares. I dreamed of rats the size of cats, dead bodies and needles stuck into me. I found that the Nazis had made soup out of Jewish fat. I dreamed that soap bar spoke to me in deep voices, my parents and sister asking me, why are you washing with us? So, and the fact is that they were liberated from Auschwitz, but they still suffered massively. They had malnutrition. They had a million health problems. Miriam's kidneys, we didn't realize at the time, okay, were undeveloped because of the injections she put at the camp. And also in this time, okay, there was rationing, so there was a battle, okay, to get them healthy, to get them right, to get them better, to the point where in the end they realised that with everything going on in Romania at this time, okay, with the secret police and the USSR carton, they can't stay. They feel so displaced. Now at the age of 10 they were put in Auschwitz, which they couldn't go back to their hometown. They felt unsettled in Romania under the Soviet Union. So the only place for them to go now is Israel. So, right. I knew there was nothing left for me and Miriam in Romania. During the past 5 years, I continued to live in hope that our sisters and parents might come back. Jewish organisations working with the Red Cross, I posted a list of people returning. I checked the list of the orphanage when we ate dinner every night, but there was no sign of any member of my family. Miriam and I was 16 years old. We needed to move on. And they needed to move on. So, and it's interesting too, because this is a book about young adults, about young adult, is the fact that Eva's life takes her in so many different locations. In Israel, they have to go into the Israeli army. They also have very, very wonderful careers. And it's then a journey that actually takes Eva to America. In April 1960, I met an American tourist, Michael Kor, who's visiting his brother in Tel Aviv. And they would hardly communicate. We got married a few weeks later. It said to me in English. Then I looked it up and replied yes. It was a marriage proposal. Next thing I know, I was a married woman living in Terre Haute, Indiana, where Michael lived since 1947. It comes that after the war, specifically close to his liberator from the US Allied Forces. Let me tell you, it's not exactly a particularly good idea to make sound about being able to communicate the same language, but she learned it quickly. And even in America, she endured anti-Semitism. Now, there was a time period after the war where individuals essentially were screaming out for attention. There was also a mentality post-war where so many countries, and that does include Germany and Poland and all the other countries, were essentially saying it's over. Oh, excuse me. Oh, sorry. We made a mistake. Please forgive us. That kind of. Let's move on. Let's not even acknowledge this. Let's not acknowledge, okay, that in the space of a decade, 100 million people died. Okay, just let's not. Let's just ignore, okay, the 6 million of them being Jews. Okay, let's ignore, okay, the Pink Triangle members. And not these countries, by the way, when a Pink Triangle was actually still illegal to live your life and be free in that time. So let's just ignore, okay, what happened, okay, to every single marginalized group. But it took literally like 2 decades of people actually streaming to get attention that it was taken seriously and the pain was acknowledged. Right. So, and even though Eva did experience anti Semitism, when they realised when a TV show came out about the Holocaust, they actually wrote letters and apologising for her because she didn't like Halloween. Now, one thing I did not realise, now Eva left this world, okay, in 1996, okay? Sorry, I beg your pardon, in 2009. Eve, 3, 2, 1. Now, one thing I didn't realise is that Eva left this world in 2019. Now, in the very, very end of this book, there's something I did not realise, okay, is when it comes to the afterword, Eva did one thing that is very, very unique. She chose to forgive the Nazis. She chose to forgive Josef Mengele. She made a conscious decision to forgive them for what they'd done to her. Because, which is a very, very interesting thing to do. And, right, when Eva discovered the power of forgiveness to heal the decades of pain she suffered from the Holocaust, the primary audience with whom she happened to share the experience was other Holocaust survivors. But before and after her forgiveness, she was a relentless advocate of survivors and Holocaust-related concerns. She's a catalyst for the movement to pressure governments worldwide to uncover and prosecute Nazi war criminals, responsible for millions of deaths who were living freely, mostly in Europe or South America, to join in the pursuit of financial justice for Holocaust survivors, and particularly for the Mengele twins. The museum received an apology from the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, right? In 1943, Dr. Mengele started sending specimens from Auschwitz to the KWI for Anthropological Human Heredity and Eugenics in Berlin, and a lawsuit for the chemical company, which used Jewish slave labour during the war. But she chose to forgive. Now, this is a woman who, apart from her sister, her twin sister, lost her entire immediate family and her home during the Holocaust, yet she found it to forgive. Now, this at the time divided a lot of people, which of course would, but, and Eva's forgiveness message was not universally well received. Most survivors were offended, understandably, at hearing that Eva had forgiven the Nazis. It seemed to them as Eva had forgiven the Nazis on behalf of the survivors, while I didn't want anyone to forgive the Nazis, much less on their behalf. It was a fortunate misunderstanding, right? But the thing is, some things probably were too bad to forgive. However, Eva chose to forgive for herself. That's what I get from this. She couldn't live that life with that pain and suffering of what they did. She made a decision to forgive Mengele, because how was Dr. Josef Mengele being remembered by history? What, kindly? Of course not. He's the angel of death. He's a monster. Okay? But she chose to forgive him because history was not going to remember him in a positive light. She chose to forgive the Nazis because how does history remember the Nazis? Or those, okay, who followed the Nazi ideology? Well, most certainly not. Okay, that's people condemned for that. To this day, people condemned for that. Right. So, right. But the thing is that holding on to that hatred does affect the next generation. Now, I experienced this myself. I went to Berlin with my sister several years ago, and we went to this Christmas shop that I have there, okay? They have it all year round, and just to get like a souvenir to take back. I went outside, it was hot, I wanted to smoke, because I got to smoke inside. And I've been to Germany several times. I've been to Berlin twice, Munich once. It's a wonderful country, but good architecture. And I was chatting to a German outside, okay, I got a light from him. And I said, okay, much I do like Germany, it is a wonderful country. And he said to me, oh, what about the war? And I went, well, no one can change the past, you have to move forward. That's it. I don't blame anyone, okay, that the war happened, and it happened. But you can't hold on to that. And I will most certainly not condemn the next generation for what happened 70 years ago. Of course not. Right. But it's true. Sadly, Germans today do hold on and are criticised and condemned for the actions of their ancestors, even those who don't follow the ideology and obviously despise it, despise what their ancestors did. They're not to blame. Let's be here. In 2005, I went to Germany with a friend who invited me to a lecture in school in Rockwood, Illinois. She never had to deal with World War II, not the Holocaust. Since she was a little girl, she even called a Nazi because she was German. She'd been born after the war, knew nothing about the Nazis. So I stayed far away from stories of the Holocaust as she could. The teacher encouraged her to invite me anyway. I was different as a survivor who had forgiven the Nazis. And that's why. And that is why. Now, for people who forgive, that's great. People who don't, what they did, during that decade of madness was, indescribable, despicable. So many people died in that time period. However, I do understand why she chose to forgive, to kind of move on from the past and not condemn the next generation. Right, so, but anyway, overall, please read this book. It's marvellous. It is absolutely marvellous. And even though it's a young adult book, I'm interested in reading more of her work, because to forgive them for what they did to her and for herself, she forgave them for herself, is commendable. I'll sign off here.